Every holiday season, this same topic comes up. Parents say to me, I can handle my child's behavior. What I can't handle are the comments. Comments like, he just needs discipline, or she's too old for this, or you're coddling him, or here's a good one, in my day. I got that one a lot. And even when you know the comments are wrong, they land in your body like a punch. They sting, they spike your heart rate, and for a moment, you doubt yourself. After raising my own son for 26 years and working with hundreds of parents, I can tell you this happens to even the most grounded, confident, devoted moms and dads. Today we're going to talk about how to stay emotionally regulated when these comments happen, not by trying to change our relatives, but by changing how we interpret the comment in our own minds. We're also going to talk about that hidden fear that sometimes these comments provoke, and how to trust our instincts while still taking in new ideas and not collapsing into self-criticism. So here's where we're going. We're going to talk about why relatives cling to outdated ideas, how parenting wisdom has shifted and why others have missed it, how to translate comments in real time and evaluate the possible advice, what to say in the moment, and how to keep these comments from ruining your holiday. I hope that sounds good. Let's jump in. So why do these comments hurt so much? Well, it might be obvious on its face, but let's get a little deeper into the psychology of it. It's not just the words, it's what they imply. He needs discipline implies you're not firm enough. She's too old for this implies you're enabling her again. You're coddling him suggests you're the problem. When they say, in my day, they're implying that you're weaker than previous generations. But underneath those messages is a deeper, quieter fear that parents of autistic children carry. What if I'm doing something wrong? What if they're right? What if I'm missing something? That comment doesn't create the fear, it pokes a bruise that already exists. And parents who worry about doing it right, they're usually the ones doing an extraordinary job. So let's talk about the intention of our relatives when they say these kinds of things and the parenting lens that they're looking at us through. It's my belief that most relatives who make these comments aren't trying to hurt us. I know there are exceptions, but let's try to take the position that they're not intending to harm. They think they're offering wisdom, right? They think you're struggling and they're swooping in with what worked for them. But what worked for them was built on a completely different understanding of children. My own mother, who was born in 1935, told me that I had to let my 2-month-old baby cry herself to sleep, not because she didn't care, but because that was the correct parenting advice of her time. I can remember thinking I'm doing it wrong. I put my baby down and let her cry, and I cried on the other side of the door, and I thought, no, I am not doing this. That's not to throw shade at people who do it that way currently, or to say that it's wrong. There is more than one correct way to do things. Parents in my parents' generation were taught that crying builds independence, toughness builds character, emotional expression is weakness, and compliance equals success. So in my mother's mind, there was only one correct way to do it, her way. And that's the lens that most of your relatives still see through. But here's what's changed. Parenting advice has evolved more in the last 20 years than in the past 200. We now understand that the nervous system matters, that autistic neurology requires support, not punishment, that meltdowns are overload, not manipulation, and that behavior is communication, not misbehavior. This isn't gentle parenting, it's neuroscience. But most relatives and even many young parents aren't updated. Not because they're resistant, not because they're unloving, but because they didn't have to learn this. Parents of neurotypical kids with easy temperaments, they often assume that their child's success reflects their brilliant parenting. Little do they realize that their child's neurology was doing the heavy lifting all along. And they may be great parents, I don't want to take that away from them, but they walk into your situation already believing that they understand children. But they don't. They understand their child or children, not yours, not autism, not sensory processing, not nervous system overload, and certainly not the modern science of child development. They simply don't know what they don't know. And realizing this lets you translate their comments through compassion rather than panic. So instead of thinking, they think I'm a bad parent, you can shift to, they're repeating what they were taught. This is not about my competence. That reframe alone can drop your nervous system by 50%. Are the comments still annoying? Absolutely. But the idea here is to find a tool that helps you stay regulated. So let's talk about how to translate these comments in real time. So before we respond out loud, we want to respond internally. We want to translate the comment into its actual meaning. Here are some examples. They say, he just needs discipline, and in your mind you translate that to, they don't understand sensory overload or regulation. Another, they say, she's too old for that. You translate that to, they're using age, not neurology, as a benchmark. They say, you're coddling him. You translate in your mind to, they confuse support with spoiling. They say, in my day, and you translate that to, they're quoting outdated parenting norms. This internal translation can help you stay regulated. It shifts the emotional pressure off of you and onto the context. Once you reinterpret the comment, your body stops bracing for attack. You stay in your leadership role. Now, just because the comment is uninformed doesn't mean that it won't stir something inside of you, right? We want to evaluate advice based on 2 questions. First, does this advice fit my child's neurology? If the answer is no, release it. Second, does this advice align with the parent I want to be? If not, it's not yours to take. 0 self-blame. Here are a few more phrases that you can use to stay calm, clear, and not defensive. First, thanks, we're doing what works for him. Or, I know you mean well. We're using strategies that support her neurology. If they push further, you might say, we may see this differently, but I'm comfortable with what we're doing. If you want to end it, you might say, I really don't want to debate this. Let's just enjoy the day. These comments aren't about educating others. They're about protecting your own peace. Remember that you don't need to convince anybody or win an argument or earn their approval or prove anything. You have the authority because you have the knowledge and experience. Your relatives are parenting from instinct and nostalgia. You are parenting from instinct as well, because that's important, but also insight and knowledge and experience and neuroscience. And here's your real power. You decide whose opinion gets to matter. DNA does not equal expertise. You can protect your child and your peace. No justification required. If a relative's comments have made you feel angry, ashamed, or small, please know this. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not missing something obvious. You're not failing your child. You're simply operating from a deeper, more accurate understanding than the people around you. You're raising a child in a world that wasn't built with them in mind, and you're doing it with clarity, connection, and courage. And that's why your child is so lucky. I hope you find some peace this holiday season, and I'll see you in the next video.